Elon Musk recently announced that he wanted to get into a cage fight with Mark Zuckerberg, right? And that really affected to some degree, plus minus 5% of the stock's price.
Most people who buy a Toyota or Ford vehicle do not own Toyota or Ford stock. But Tesla is a unique brand because many people who buy the car are also Tesla investors. In fact, some famous Tesla investors like Dave Lee only bought Tesla stock after trying a Model S himself all the way back in 2013. There is a large overlap between Tesla vehicle owners and Tesla stock investors, especially in Silicon Valley. Today, I'm going to speak to Jim to hear his experience about why this car gives him so much joy and how come he's not a Tesla investor. Click subscribe to stay updated to more videos on Tesla. Jim, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me.
Can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Jim. I run a marketing agency. We help our clients get more clients. And I think back in March, the end of March, I actually bought a Model 3 for myself. And that's after like reviewing many videos from Daren and seeing like what's the feasibility like of owning a EV, an EV in Singapore, especially when it comes to like charging and stuff like that. So I actually live in a HDB flat, so charging was a huge concern. But obviously after watching a couple of videos, looking at all the reviews, that really helped me to make the decision to proceed to switch to an EV from an ICE vehicle we previously.
Very nice. How much was this car that you bought?
So if we add everything up together, I think it's roughly 230k. With all the additional mods like the white interior,
Yeah.
the 20-inch wheels, the insurance coverage, which is pretty high. It was about 3,005 because I have 0% NCD, 0% no claim discount. And then we had to add road tax and stuff like that. So it was about 230k.
230,000 Singapore dollars. In US dollars, I think that's around 170,000 US dollars. So that's a huge commitment. Jim clearly has a lot more conviction on the vehicle than the stock, which you can buy for as little as $100 with fractional shares. So let's find out what about this car gives Jim so much joy and also what does not give him joy. I'll be behind the camera as he gives us a tour and tells us about this.
The first thing that I wanted to kind of share regarding the car is obviously the app, because I think the app is fantastic. So the most common feature that I'll use like on a daily basis is definitely the AC. So you can turn on the aircon just by pressing this. So to me, that's a huge plus because given the fact that in Singapore it's really hot, right? Having AC turned on when you are like 10 minutes before you bought the vehicle is a huge plus for me. Yeah, and I perspire like really easily, so that really helps a lot. Then the other thing is the Sentry mode. I think it's good to kind of have a feature to be able to detect like any accidents, stuff like that. So Sentry mode allows you to remotely view what's happening like the front of the vehicle, the back of the vehicle, the left and the right hand side of the vehicle. As you can see, that's us right now. And it also allows you to like flash and stuff, but you don't really need all these. I think it's cute. But the main thing being like you need to record the footage. I think that's the main thing. And yeah, you can adjust like the AC temperature and stuff from here. You can open the trunk, which I'm about to show you guys. So I'm just gonna press this icon here to open the front. As you can see, it opens. And the good thing of owning an EV is that you get extra storage space because there's no engine. There is only batteries. So I usually just put like groceries here. In some cases, I put like my jacket here because yesterday I had somebody in the rear passenger seat, so I don't put my jacket there. But yeah, so I was also just telling Daren off camera that during rainy days, the sides of the frunk actually accumulates a lot of water, as you can see now. And I think this is actually a design flaw because there's a gap in the center, right, that actually lets the water drop towards the frunk, which I think should not happen. Yeah, and I don't think this was prevalent in the previous ICE car that I owned, so that is definitely something that I feel can be worked on. But aside from that, on a normal day, a non-rainy day, this is definitely for the storage space. So that being said, let's move on to the other parts. So the next thing that I wanted to cover was like the side mirrors. I think that the previous ice car that I own doesn't have that. Meaning like it doesn't automatically close when you shift it to the park the park mode. So that definitely helps. And also there is an auto dim function, meaning that when you're driving at night, and if the lights are too bright, the rear mirror and the side mirror automatically dims. So that definitely is helpful for me because I actually suffer from astigma. So when the lights are too bright at night, my vision is slightly blurred. Yeah, so the auto dim function from the side mirrors and the rear mirrors definitely helps a ton. Next thing I want to talk about is like the door handles. So the door handles I feel is something that I think on the Model S and the Model X it automatically comes out by itself instead of being in the flush position. I feel that for the Model 3 and Model Y, we could also have that. But maybe it's because, I don't know, we don't pay more for it. But this is something that I feel most passengers have to kind of learn, or you have to guide the passenger because they are still not used to this yet. Yeah, so it being in the fully flush position, you have to kind of like show them that there's a learning curve to open it with your thumb first and then pull it with your other finger. So it's a minor thing.
That is so true. That one of the top features by Grab, Uber drivers, if you want this to be like a great ride-hailing car, is people need to know how to open the doors. There is one unexpected upside for the doors being a bit harder for people to open. So I think there's this entry mode footage where someone parked their Tesla in Johor or even anywhere in the world, right? Some thieves are trying to open the car door, cannot open the door. Or like some people are trying to hijack your car, they don't know how to open your car door. So that's not a bad thing in those rare, crazy situations.
Actually, that's true. I think like if somebody actually has to steal something from a vehicle, they're probably not that resourceful to go and identify how to open the car. That being said,
so that's why familiarity matters, right? Even the frunk that Jim showed earlier. Last year, or when Tesla first launched in Singapore, the immigration didn't know how to check the frunk, So if let's say you kept anything in the frunk, right, they won't check. But now if you go to most immigration, they ask you, open the frunk. Let's inspect the frunk.
Yeah, so now you know what you need to do if you need to, bring stuff that you don't want to get checked by the immigration officer. Hide it in the frunk. Okay, I'm just kidding. But anyway, that's for the kind of the doors, right? And then I think the port that we usually use for the charging of pumping of the fuel is now a charging port on an EV. So I think this is pretty neat. It usually locks, but because I'm here, so I have the key, right? So it's basically just a simple charging port. And the good thing about this, and I didn't know this when I bought the car, by the way, is it's waterproof. So you know how like you go to the car wash and stuff, right? And then, or rather, this story actually happened to me. I was at the car wash and then I forgot to use car wash mode on the car. And then the pressure of the water was so strong to the point that you open this up. And then I panicked because I thought water was going to enter the charge port and the whole car would, like spoil or something. But apparently, after consulting the Tesla consultant, they mentioned that it's waterproof. So no harm, no foul. No damage was done. So,
that's pretty amazing. I did not know this was waterproof. Like your iPhone's like an IP rating. It's crazy.
Yeah, so it's pretty solid. I think even if you didn't turn on car wash mode, carry on, man. But I think in the future I've learned my lesson.
But don't try your luck lah.
Yeah, don't push it. But it's still good to know that it's waterproof. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so if you want to close the charge port, it usually closes by itself. But I think because the key is here, you can also just simply press the close and then closes. Okay, so the next portion would be the trunk, which is about 1.25 to 1.5 times more cargo space than the previous car that I had, I believe. So
for the audience context, what were you driving before this? This was your first EV, right?
Yeah, so this is definitely a first EV. I was driving a Avante, Hyundai Avante before this. I think it's slightly smaller. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think it's slightly smaller. For the cargo space. So yeah, I think you can easily fit like 2 to 3 luggage bags here if you do it properly. So like it's quite deep. I don't really need that much space. Like I just put like a first aid kit box. That's from my wife's instructions. And over here we kind of have like some bags to like shop for groceries and stuff because sustainability, right? Um, and this is the sunshade that we bought on the day of the purchase. When I made the purchase, when I placed the order for the car. So this is like $100, but we actually tried to use it once, and then I think the clips were like not holding up something, or the size was slightly bigger. So I'm not sure if Tesla sent us the wrong sunshade. But anyways, we tried using it, it didn't work, and we never revisited this again because it was not necessary. But more on that later. Um, and obviously here there is this little hook that you can pull up, and there's more storage space. So yeah, I basically just put like a basketball here because I play basketball from time to time. And then I think on this side, we actually put like a car vacuum cleaner, which is kind of like it fits nicely into that little hole there. I think on the Model Y there's more space here, right? Yeah, but unfortunately for Model 3 there isn't, so this is just flat. And then I think there's this little hook that allows you to manually open the charge port. I haven't tried it yet, but I've seen it in some videos.
That's right.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much for the cargo space. It's more than sufficient for me, as you can see. And even if like you're taking road trips to Malaysia or stuff like that, it's gonna be able to fit all your bags nicely. Yeah, and also maybe because I don't have a kid or something, so I don't need that much space. So yeah, that's it. I think I'll just close the trunk now. Should we go into the interior?
Let's take a look. Yeah, you see what surrounds us up here is this gigantic glass roof. Let's ask Jim on how he and his family enjoyed it so far.
Okay, so I think earlier on I was talking about the roof. So there's kind of like already by default a certain tint to it already. So that's why we didn't see the need to use the sunshades at all. Yeah, I think some people still find that the sun is still too strong even with the tint. But personally for myself, I think that it's still good to get out in the sun every now and then. It does help with, I don't know, getting like some vitamin D or phosphate or magnesium or something. So that definitely was my purpose. So therefore we didn't see the need to buy a front or a rear sunshade after that incident of not being able to put in the sunshade. So yeah.
With that said, the sunroof is more enjoyed by the rear passengers than the front passengers. The driver is focused on again driving. The front passenger got to look all the way up like that lah, to see the glass roof. So it's definitely a great feature. I notice it a lot more being a road trip passenger behind.
That being said, I think most of the rear passengers that I have kind of like, traveled with, right? They kind of like the fact that, there's a full view of the roof, of the sky, and they kind of enjoy the view. So this might be purely anecdotal, but yeah, I think that might be a consideration factor if you ever want to get a Model 3 or a Model Y. Yeah.
Talking about passengers, you had families, friends in your car. How did they take it? Were they surprised after hearing you paid $230,000 for a Tesla? Or they went, wow, it's quite an interesting car.
I think it's definitely a conversation to have with them. So they are more concerned about the fact that COE is like at an all-time high right now. It's like when I bought the car, the COE was like 105k, and then they were more surprised of the fact that the COE was that high and I still made the purchase than the fact that it's an EV. But I think they are just like surprised by the fact that somebody would actually be willing to pay that much for the COE, and I did. And I guess what pushed me to really buy the car at that point in time was, first of all, like I already wanted to buy the car when the COE was like 80k or 70k or something, and then I thought like, hey, let's wait for it to further drop. But the next thing you know, it just continued to go up, right? So I was like, there's no point waiting anymore. And then now it's 120k, which is even higher. So yeah, that was what led me to the purchase, because I really wanted it for like about a couple of months. But I settled for a second-hand ICE car first, because that was my first car. I thought like I didn't have to get something that good. But yeah, that was kind of the reason.
This being your first EV, your first Tesla, you took a risk. There are some things that were actually under promise. Like maybe even after watching all the YouTube videos, it still wowed you after actually experiencing the car yourself. What were those things?
I think the sensors. So like for instance, when you're in tight corners or like you're entering a car park, right? I think the sensors are pretty strong. So when you're within 30 centimeters or less from the obstacle, it does let you know. And for me, because I really suck at parallel parking, like I don't know if anyone in the watching this video is bad at it, comment down below.
Same. You're not alone.
Yeah, so you know in Singapore there's so many like shop house parkings, right, where you need to like fit the car in. So when I was previously driving an ICE car, I would like have troubles trying to gauge and stuff like that. So having the the 4 cameras to help with that does make it a lot easier to park. And also the sensors. Yeah, so we probably can't show it to you now, but if you are too close to an obstacle, it does tell you like you are too close, like 20 centimeters or 30 centimeters or less, and then it will start dinging and tell you to stop. So to me, that's a huge plus that I did not expect. And then the other thing being the autocorrect feature on the lane. So under one of the, I think it's over autopilot. So lane departure avoidance, right? I selected assist. So in the event that the car is like swerving outside of the lane, it will actually automatically steer it back to keep you like in the lane. Yeah, and that really does help, because at times it's very hard for us to gauge. Maybe it's because I'm a bad driver, but it does help you to like keep you in lane, and that's good. And then for forward collision warning, I set it as early. So what this does is it actually gauges your vehicle's speed and how far the vehicle in front of you is, and it will automatically warn you. It will like have this beeping sound that tells you that you are kind of a bit too fast. Yeah, so I think all these makes the vehicle a lot safer. Because in the previous car that I drove, there were a lot of near misses, if I can put it that way. Didn't get into an accident, but there were near misses. So I think all these does help to put a little bit more confidence, a little bit more assurance for the passengers, being my wife, in most cases, as well. So yeah, that's definitely something that I would feel like is really solid. And then autopilot, I think, although it's not full self-driving yet, it's not FSD yet, I think I quite like the feature, and it's really easy to use. You just need to like tap the stalk down twice to use it, and then to disengage you just push it up once. So yeah, these are the kind of the things that I think were really good.
So some things were under-promised, but of course, like any brand, some things could be overhyped, over-promised as well. What you felt was way overpromised, shocked you or surprised you?
So the range on Tesla's website for a Model 3 rear-wheel drive, I think it's 480 to 490 kilometers. But when I bought the vehicle, and then I viewed the full range, right, at that point in time, I think it was about 439 kilometers on 100% state of charge. You probably can't see it now, but to me, that's about 40 to 50 km difference, which is quite significant. But again, I think early on, Daren and I was just discussing, like, I'm not sure is it because it didn't take into account the regenerative braking. That's why it's slightly lower. But maybe the actual range, if you take into account regenerative braking, is really about 480 kilometers or more. And also because I opted for the 20-inch sport wheels, I don't know if that made a difference. But I think Daren mentioned that it like plus minus 20 to 30 kilometers of range. So yeah, that might have been one of the influencing factors. So that's the range. The second thing would be I would think the overall build quality of the vehicle. So there are some like panel gaps. When you open the door, especially on a rainy day, like today, right? Like we can see some droplets that's being stuck at the, I don't know what you call this, the panel of the vehicle. So I feel that for a vehicle that costs this much, that's kind of like something that should be worked on to kind of have that proper clean experience, or like, make it look nicer. Yeah, so like build quality. Is that considered build quality?
Yeah, it is. People are looking for that refinement. So a lot of the features, like Jim mentioned, even all the smart features, luxury ICE cars have it. If you're driving a Porsche, a BMW, a Mercedes, the high-end ones, you have many of these features. What Tesla does is they constantly iterate. They make them better. So Tesla is a work in progress. There's so much that it can improve. The panel gaps has been a big issue in the past. It's getting better over time. But things like Jim mentioned, and because it just rained as we're filming this video, it just rained in Thursday morning. It's a public holiday here today. And so you can really see the raindrops covering different parts of the car, as Jim mentioned.
Yeah, so I think that would be the panel gaps. And then the next thing would be the road noise. I think when you're driving, probably can't hear it now, but the road noise is slightly, I would say, louder, or maybe, yeah, I would say it's slightly louder. Or early on, like we were also discussing, is it because there is no longer an engine noise, which is why it made the road noise so much more obvious and so much more prevalent? That could be it as well. Yeah, so we won't know for sure. But the road noise is like slightly louder. So I can kind of hear the wind or the road noise when we are actually in motion, when we're actually in driving. Yeah. So that would be the third point. I think the next one would be probably Sentry mode. So Sentry mode actually consumes slightly more. You probably can't see it now, but if you go to the dash cam, let me try and find dash cam, and then you click on Sentry. Yeah, these are all like the footages that we have recorded. So I think for every 1 hour that the vehicle is parked, it consumes about 0.8% to 1% battery. So when I was actually in Malaysia for like 12 hours, I think it consumed about 10 to 12%. Yeah. So that kind of like, to me, it feels like the consumption is a bit fast. So unless you're parked somewhere with EV charging, I feel that Sentry mode by itself, does really consume a lot of battery. So yeah, it's something that I don't know if can be improved in the future, but not too big of a deal. But if they can kind of reduce the consumption of battery with Sentry mode, it would be great.
That's a fair point. We were just talking about it. It's a great feature, Sentry mode, and Tesla sells us a lot on Sentry mode. However, for those of us in Singapore especially, most owners in Singapore do not have access to home charging. We live in HDBs. By 2025, most car parks will have EV chargers, but right now, that's not yet our reality. So it is a trade-off. If you are driving in a more dangerous place or we're going overseas, we'll turn on Sentry mode. But on day-to-day commute in Singapore, do you?
So one thing about Sentry mode that I really like, right, to answer Darren's question, is that it allows you to exclude certain places. So I exclude home because if you're parked down in your HDB car park, not like, somebody's gonna tamper the vehicle, what are the odds, right? Really low. And that allows me to basically not turn on Sentry mode when I'm parked at home because it's generally safe. But when I'm outside, like when I'm in the shopping mall or something, somebody might just nick the car for whatever reason, because they open the doors and you want to claim from them, maybe. Then yeah, Sentry Mode is definitely turned on.
One more software feature to talk about, as we're discussing, was enhanced autopilot and full self-driving in Singapore. Tell us more.
So I don't get why certain features are rolled out in the US but not rolled out in Singapore. Maybe it's because the market there is bigger, right? So they have to address the bigger market first, and I totally respect that. But currently for EAP and FSD, I think it's not made on a subscription mode. You can only buy it for the full price, which is a very hefty price tag. It's $5,500 at one go. And that only locks it to this vehicle, which means that you can't use that on other vehicles. And to me, it's too big of a price to pay, 5.5K, when it's not even fully functional. So I certainly hope that they could launch like a subscription basis for that, like what they do in the US. I think it's $199 a month or something. And they should have that feature in Singapore so that we can try it out for like a couple of months and see if we want to commit to the big purchase.
Yes, hopefully soon. You've owned this car for 3 months now. In this 3-month relationship with Tesla, what sparks the most joy for you?
Well, I think autopilot is a big plus. It makes driving a lot more smooth. The fact that the overall vehicle feels like more quiet. I think that's also a huge plus, because usually I try to have conversations with my wife or friends in the car, and then I felt that the engine noise, the revving engine noise, was really bugging us. But given the fact that there's no longer an engine now, there's only road noise, it's a lot quieter. And then I think the other thing being the drive itself is a lot smoother. So my wife always describes this as like it's as smooth as butter, when you're driving. And that's true, because for ICE cars, I think it's very like, it's very jerky. It's like the car is always jerking. Whereas for EVs, on the other hand, it's very smooth, because the torque is instant, right? It's not like you have to ramp it up to a certain point. So to me, these are like the biggest, noticeable benefits of owning an EV or owning Tesla in general.
But Jim has shared the ups and downs of owning a Tesla, and despite all of that, he took the plunge to own a Tesla in a country where Teslas are, and all cars are, the most expensive in the world. But he's not a Tesla investor, so let's hear why.
Yeah, so I think two reasons. The first reason is that I feel that Tesla is a very volatile stock. And what I mean by that is, so like for instance, Elon Musk recently announced that he wanted to get into a cage fight with Mark Zuckerberg, right? And that really affected to some degree, plus minus 5% of the stock's price. And then prior to that, when he announced that he was buying over Twitter, I think the stock took a 30% plunge? I don't know. This is quite a significant amount. And then after that, it started climbing back up again. So I feel that there's that inherent volatility to the stock. And me being a more kind of like less aggressive or risk averse person in nature, I think that's kind of a risk that I don't want to take. And I feel that it's quite volatile. So to me, like my philosophy is I don't wanna get rich quick. I wanna get rich for sure, right? So that is something that I kind of believe in. And then the second thing is I wanted to kind of free up more cash flow, like liquid cash, to kind of reinvest back in my own business or in my own personal development. I think that's something that's highly underrated. And people talk about like, hey, where should I put my money in, like stocks, real estate? But hey, why don't you just put it in yourself, or put it in your business? Like that would naturally give you like a higher return on investment. So these are like the two main reasons.
Elon Musk is a complicated figure. A lot of crazy moments, as Jim shared. But as an entrepreneur yourself, you also see some light about Elon. So tell me, like, what do you think about Elon Musk? How much does he factor into your decision to own or not own a Tesla vehicle?
Okay, I think Elon Musk is a brilliant entrepreneur. I always watch his like interviews with the Rogan show and stuff like that, and all pretty much all his like shareholder meetings and stuff. I'll watch them and see how he thinks. I always like to try to dig through his thought process to kind of figure out like how he goes about thinking of his business. And I think he's very inspiring. And one of the main motivators that also led me to want to buy the vehicle is because I truly respect him as an entrepreneur, and I think that he's really good in that regard in business. So yeah, that does give me that kind of confidence that hey, I should really buy Tesla stock. But again, it's about assessing what the risk profile is of an investor, and whether you are willing to accept the volatility of the stock as well. So I think that's my thoughts on Elon Musk. I still watch his like interviews every now and then to kind of see the way he thinks.
Thank you, Jim, for sharing your experience. The reality is, just because you believe in the product doesn't mean you invest in the company. Most of us, we own iPhones, doesn't mean we buy Apple stock, at least not directly, right? Maybe your ETF or fund holds it, but you may not own it directly. So in a recent poll, I asked many of you, Tesla owners, how many of you are Tesla investors? In my global poll on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, about 80% of you owners around the world also own Tesla stock. So I also asked then a separate poll for Tesla owners only in Singapore, because Singapore's car prices are way higher. It's a very slightly different relationship. We're not Silicon Valley where the stock and the car are so entwined. It's still more traditional car club, a little bit more. And even then, about 71% of the respondents who are Tesla owners in Singapore also own Tesla stock. But not everyone does. So I'm curious to hear from you, why, if you are an owner, you own or don't own Tesla stock. Share with us down in the comments below. Jim, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Daren.
For sharing your full experience owning the car, why he doesn't own the stock yet.
Yeah, again, full disclaimer, I'm not saying that I'm not gonna buy Tesla stock for the rest of my life. I'm just saying that at my current financial situation, at my current risk profile and investment philosophy, I don't want to own a stock yet. But it doesn't mean that in the near future or in the future, I won't like start dollar cost averaging on Tesla or something. Maybe after the cage fight that Elon has with Mark Zuckerberg, and then he loses, and then the stock goes down by 10%, I might come in. All right, so just for you guys to take note.
So if this video sparked joy for you, please click the like button. Hit subscribe to stay updated to more videos on Tesla.